I guess I started questioning my next step, and I did not know what to do. And I was supposed to go back to Israel, and it was a very, again, challenging time. I enjoyed my time in Hawaii for that short visit, but that visit turned into a whole year. And I think the pinnacle of it is I'm walking down Waikiki Beach and trying to decide, should I get back on that plane or not? Now, I'm 18 years old. My parents live in Israel. I don't have any family. And I was introduced to this idea of, universe, give me a sign. And I prayed and I asked for a sign, and I'm walking in Waikiki Beach with my head face down and just needing some guidance. And I kind of raise my head at that point, and I look ahead of me, and this person's just walking in front of me, and my eyes fixated on their shirt. And the shirt said, "Go home or go all the way."
Welcome to the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. We are your hosts, Jess and BJ, and it is here each week where we share stories of people looking, finding, and living their purpose. And I think if you ask anyone who feels as though they are doing what they came to this earth to do, they will tell you that it's always evolving and calling them to more. I know it's true for us, and I can only assume that it is also true for our guest today. Dr. Alon Sitzer is a board-certified family and lifestyle physician who is calling his patients to higher levels of health as he guides the industry of healthcare back to a relationship-building partnership of well-being. Dr. Sitzer is the founder of Empowerment based in Newburyport, Massachusetts, where he provides family, lifestyle, and spiritual medicine in person. Actually, he goes to his patients' homes. Empowerment is one of the growing number of private practices that have moved away from the traditional insurance-based model and into a patient-first experience. Dr. Sitzer's intention is to inspire, motivate, support, and encourage people to become proactive about their health needs and foster a sense of self-compassion, care, and kindness. He believes that the body is an amazing creation that knows how to heal, and that healthcare is truly a process of self-care. He is also one of the wonderful doctors offering virtual patient care through plant-based telehealth, and we're so honored that he's spending time with us today. This is the first time we're meeting, and from what we know, we have a wonderful story to uncover today. We've been looking forward to diving in, and also, as we have just become aware of, this is Dr. Sitzer's first podcast. So we're so excited to welcome you into this medium and welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jess and BJ. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
So Newburyport, I've got a very good friend of mine. I don't know if you practice yoga at all.
Small correction. Wow. I actually live in West Newbury, which is a neighboring town to Newburyport.
Okay.
Whatever it's worth. Still very but yeah.
I know those town lines back east. We're New Englanders.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome.
But I have a very good friend, a woman that I run yoga and meditation retreats with, and she lives in Newburyport, which is not where you live, but she teaches at Riverside Yoga. I don't know if you're familiar with that or if you practice yoga.
Who?
Her name is Megan Layton. She's a wonderful teacher. If you do practice yoga, I highly recommend attending her class. She's lovely. I think you would enjoy it.
I don't know her, but yeah, that's great. That's great to know about for sure.
Yeah, it looks like a beautiful studio as well. So yes. I want to hear your story. You grew up in the Holy Land. I believe you were born in Texas. And I'm not referring to Texas as the Holy Land. I'm referring to Israel. And I'd love to hear about, I know you went to medical school there. I'd just love to hear about your journey. If you'd be so kind to share with us just this journey of who you are today.
Well, I was born in Houston, Texas. My mom was actually born in Palestine before Israel became Israel in 1948. And my dad came to Israel when he was a young kid, 13 years old, from Argentina. And they met there and had two older brothers. And then they moved to Texas. And I was born there. And then at age 5, we moved back to Israel. My mom missed her mom and her parents. So we returned home, and I grew up in a small town outside of Tel Aviv. Israel is a awesome country, full of excitement and vitality. And what kind of most people hear on the news, it also has another side to it. So I would say that one of the pivotal moments in my life and my journey was the first Desert Storm War, because I lived in Israel at the time, and with Saddam Hussein back in the day, and missiles were kind of flying over our heads back then. And to put it simply, it was definitely quite a traumatic period for me. It was very, very challenging on kind of a mental and an emotional level. Yet it kind of started, I would say, a spiritual journey for me. Not that I was aware of that concept back then. And kind of one thing led to another. And at the age of 18, I basically decided to go on a journey to seek truth. And really, it was a journey to kind of heal myself. Like I said, probably the real pivotal moment was the sirens going up and down, kind of 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and we all kind of ran into our sheltered room in our apartment and put our gas masks on, sat under the piano, and there was a thunderstorm outside, and not knowing what was really blowing up, whether it was thunder or missiles. And let's just say it created a lot of fear in me, and that at the age of, I think I was 14, I didn't really know how to deal with. And fear that was overwhelming, to the point that it kind of got the best of me and kind of took over. And kind of fast forward, I have 2 older brothers. Like I said, they were kind of on this journey, and my older brother, who's 10 years older than myself, and his name is Erez, by the way, and Erez means cedar tree in Hebrew. And my other brother, his name is Nitzan, which means bud, the flower bud. So a lot of nature. And he kind of came to visit and kind of opened my mind to terms like the universe and spirituality and Zen and things that were kind of new to someone who kind of lived a very standard Israeli lifestyle. And at the age of 18, I left kind of a pre-army vacation to Hawaii. It was all men go to the Israeli army at the age of 18, and so do women, by the way. Men go for 3 years, and at the time women went, I believe, for 2 years. And I got to Hawaii. Actually, before I got to Hawaii, I got to my other brother who lived in Denver, Colorado. And this is the 90s when kind of new age bookstores were abound, where crystals were a real thing, and tarot cards and, self-help books. And it was just a wonderful environment to be in. Those stores felt like sanctuaries. And I was introduced to a lot of that when I lived with my brother for a few weeks, visited him in Denver. And then I followed and went to Hawaii. I surf. And so the goal was to kind of go surfing in Hawaii and return to Israel and go into the army. But things kind of took a turn, kind of unplanned. And when I got to Hawaii, at the time I was reading the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And if you recall in the book, there's a point where he has all his belongings are stolen at one point, kind of early on his journey. And I was reading that book at the time, and the day that I arrived to Hawaii, the following morning, with a group of other surfers, we drove to the North Shore to Sunset Beach, and we went surfing. And I brought all my stuff with me, or my passport and my money and my plane tickets. And when we got back to the car, someone broke into it and it was all stolen. So at the time, I was kind of bummed, obviously, but at the same time, I was kind of, whoa, The Alchemist, and I kind of had all these ideas in my head, but that kind of changed the direction, and I guess I started questioning my next step, and I did not know what to do, and I was supposed to go back to Israel. And it was a very, again, challenging time. I enjoyed my time in Hawaii for that short visit, but that visit turned into a whole year. And I think the pinnacle of it is I'm walking down Waikiki Beach and trying to decide, should I get back on that plane or not? Now, I'm 18 years old. My parents live in Israel. I don't have any family. And I was introduced to this idea of universe, give me a sign. And I prayed and I asked for a sign, and I'm walking in Waikiki Beach with my head face down and just needing some guidance. And I kind of raise my head at that point and I look ahead of me, and this person's just walking in front of me, and my eyes fixated on their shirt. And the shirt said, go home or go all the way. Yeah.
Amazing.
And so I feel in a way I did both, but home became a new place eventually, and I decided to go all the way. And it was exciting for me. It was scary. It was unknown, and so I basically did not return to Israel, and I kind of had to in order to get back in. It's mandatory to go to the Israeli army, and for me at that time, I wasn't in a place, in a state of heart and state of mind to do that, and I needed a lot of healing on many levels, and to figure things out for myself. I don't know the extent I was thinking about that back then, but in retrospect, it's kind of what I needed. So I actually stayed in Hawaii for a year. I had no clue how to live life as an adult because I didn't feel like I really was an adult yet. And my brother at the time lived in Japan. So one in Japan, one in Denver, Colorado. And I had daily phone conversations with my brother in Japan, who kind of taught me how to start living. You need to get a job. You need to, start doing things. And I found a small health food store that kind of also introduced me to a lot of concepts on health. And at the time, I read a book called Fit for Life. Kind of turned vegan kind of fairly over a few days' time because I was so blown away by all the information in that book. I also got a job at Woolworth Waikiki, which I believe is probably still there, but this amazing guy who basically for a living created toys. And one of the things he created was these little toy gliders that you throw up in the air and they come back to you. And so my job was we had a little stand in the middle of Woolworth, and I would basically play with these toys and sell them. And the job was fun, but my boss, this guy, his name was Michael. I can't remember his last name, but he was so creative. And he used to have weekly gatherings with me and another gentleman who worked with us. And he was always at a restaurant, and he was all about teaching success. And he had us read the book, How to Win People, or How to, by not Napoleon Hill, but How to Influence People, How to Win Friends and Influence People. A very popular book back from the 60s or 50s. And I kind of learned so much. I was kind of doing the school of life in a way. And eventually Hawaii felt small. The island felt small, and it was time to leave. And I moved to my brother in Denver, Colorado, and lived with him. And lived there for 2 years, eventually moved to Boulder, Colorado, and had the joy of living in Boulder with all its amazing people. Worked at Whole Foods Market, at customer service for quite a while, did singing telegrams in Denver and Boulder for a while, kind of explored, studied nutrition. The same people who wrote the book Fit for Life, I basically kind of did the same course that they did, and that book was all about, back then it was called Raw Food Diets, but it was basically about plant-based nutrition, and it also delved into the sciences of fasting, and it was really fascinating to me. So, and during those several years, I'm talking about like 4 or 5 years, I would travel back and forth to Israel. At one point, I had to actually kind of spend a few days in an army jail because I had to kind of, when I went back to visit my family, that was kind of the first thing that happened, and they just took me to the army because I had to. And one thing led to another, and eventually I got out. And let me just say that I think there are places where, I mean, I'm not against anything. I think there's room for having an army in the world that we live in, and it has definitely a function. But for me, at the time, it wasn't in my cards. The idea of someone, and there's definitely more to this, but the thoughts at the time that I had was, I don't have anything against anyone who was apparently by maybe fate born on the other side of this border and kind of automatically makes it my enemy. Is just, it never kind of fit, never sat well. There's obviously more to it. And as you know, Israel is a crazy place on so many levels. And it definitely needs an army. That's a controversial subject on so many levels, and I'm not here to get in the middle of it, and that's why I kind of speak for myself. Eventually, I returned to the States, and I spent some time at Kripalu Yoga Center. I had a cousin. I call him a cousin because we have the same last name. We're both Sitzers, and he was one of the directors of their body work program. And at the time, I was a massage therapist. I studied massage while I was in Israel, and he invited me to come and be an assistant at the program. And so I returned to the States and spent there about 6 to 8 weeks. Had an amazing time, learned a lot by teaching. One thing led to another. Relationship kind of led me up to Vermont. That's how I kind of got to Vermont. Worked at Smuggler's Notch ski center as a massage therapist. So I was a snowboard massage therapist bum for several seasons, for a few years. And finally, my mom kind of told me that massage was definitely just a hobby. It wasn't a real job. And I sat at the top of Mount Mansfield in Vermont and kind of thought, what is my calling? What do I want to do? And I thought, I really like caring for people. And so I decided to go to medical school. Little did I know what I was getting into. At the time, I had no clue what ibuprofen was or Tylenol or anything. And I was fairly kind of, I was brainwashed in my nutritional studies to kind of not think well of medicine. And one of the reasons of wanting to also go to medical school was to kind of understand medicine and understand physicians and understand why do physicians think the way they think when they approach sickness and illness, and why is the treatment not nutrition and maybe fasting and giving the body a break and a rest and taking care of all those lifestyle kind of needs. And so one thing led to another, and I had the option to go back to Israel, and I went to the Sackler School of Medicine, which is an American program, but in Tel Aviv University. So again, got the opportunity to go home and live in the town that I grew up in near my parents. And that was, again, that was exciting. It was a great period. And then I decided to go into family medicine. So my medical residency was in Hartford, Connecticut. And I returned to the States, did that residency, met my wife in Hartford. She's from Connecticut. And after residency, I got a job or took a job in rural America in a small town named Lovington, New Mexico. My wife was amazing and courageous and kind enough to join me to this rural town of, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000. We didn't live in that town. We lived 30 minutes away in a town called Hobbs, New Mexico, which is the southeast corner of New Mexico, where there's kind of a lot of those oil kind of tumbleweed. I mean, it's kind of more like Texas than the New Mexico most people think about. And we lived there for close to 4 years. I did primary care, I did some hospital work, and I fell into wound care medicine, which taught me a lot. And it was a great experience. And eventually my wife wanted to, we have 2 kids. One kid was born in Hobbs, Sky, and Lily was born in Denver City, Texas, because they didn't have OB services in Hobbs anymore. So we had to drive about 30, 40 minutes away. And they were born in there. And so we wanted to be closer to family. My parents still live in Israel. So we searched the area, and we fell on this gorgeous location. The Newburyport kind of area community is really wonderful. And we've been here for about 4 years now. I got a job at a local clinic, primary care clinic, as an outpatient, and did that, adults. And then over the pandemic, things kind of changed. And I fell on this model of care called direct primary care, and which kind of breaks away from the fee-for-service insurance world. And then last year, in August 9th of 21, I started Empowerment LLC, which is kind of my full-time job right now. And then I'm also affiliated, or I work with plant-based telehealth for a few months now. And so that's, in a nutshell, a little bit of a lot. You can dissect that for days and days and days, but I'm gonna take a pause.
Yeah, I feel like you are the story of the alchemist.
Yeah,
I mean, it's so interesting to see. Like, I'm kind of looking at this whole
parallels.
Yeah, I'm looking at this whole story from like beyond the atmosphere, right? Like, I'm looking at this whole story from a spiritual perspective, and the trauma of war, and the requirement of being in the army, and landing yourself, on some of the most spiritualized islands, which are, the Hawaiian Islands, and having this connection, whether you were aware of it or not, with this higher mind or higher self or whatever we want to call it, universe. that when you needed the sign, it was right there. And it was like taking that brave choice, and just, you keep falling into the guy at Woolworths and like how to be successful. You didn't know how to live. And you've got all these people that are teaching you. And I'm sure there's a lot of details in there, but just your willingness to follow this deeper call, whether it was clear or not, but just being clear on what didn't feel okay for you and honoring that. It's a beautiful story. I was quite entranced. I was like, what's going to happen next? So with this, this foundation, or this that you've got from, just discovering things in Boulder. We used to live in Boulder as well. I was actually wondering if you went to massage school there, because I had gone to massage school there. But I mean, that's a wonderful place. A lot of spiritual teachings there, a lot of holistic medicine there. And then to go to this sort of Western model of medicine. And as you're practicing primary care, were you quote unquote following the rules? Were you trying to bring in other influences, or were you kind of finding this almost like this cognitive dissonance, like, there's got to be something more than how I can assist these patients?
I think of me kind of integrating everything into kind of, I've learned a lot over the years, and I basically have lots of tools, and medicine, or, pharmaceutical medicine is kind of one tool bag, or toolbox. And sometimes if it's necessary, I can use it. But as a foundation, I think I've always kind of practiced lifestyle medicine, even before kind of knowing what lifestyle medicine, or before the term kind of became a term that it is now, and as a kind of a respected specialty or subspecialty in medicine, where it has its college and there's a board certification process, etc. So I kind of, even as a massage therapist, I didn't just practice Swedish massage or sports medicine or Thai yoga. I used to eventually kind of take it all and kind of make a smorgasbord of, different, different techniques. So I think that's kind of what I do now, although I would say that the metaphor I always use is, the tree of life, the trunk of the tree is not medicine. It's not pharmacy. It's lifestyle. It's who we are. And the branches are there's so many branches, and one of those branches is pharmaceutical medicine. And so I've kind of learned over the years to kind of give it the perspective that it really, that it is, and not thinking of medicine as the tree and, plant-based nutrition or integrative medicine or acupuncture or whatever other tools we have are kind of just the leaves. The perspective is, the foundation is kind of who we are. It's our journeys, it's our habits, it's the choices we make, it's how we were raised. There's so many elements to it. And when it comes to intervening and kind of, which is what medicine really is about, or pharmaceutical medicine, it's just one branch. And all these branches are the different tools and the different choices we can make in the process of becoming healthy, or whatever it is one's personal goal is that they're trying to achieve.
In that same analogy, the practice that you are doing and moving towards is unique to each individual patient. So you can use the leaves, but you got to dig down to the roots to find what it is about this unique individual, Jess or myself. Like, what is it about the the conditions that you're feeling now. What is at the root of what's happening? And I think the surface level is, ibuprofen or whatever can kind of tame it a little bit, but what's at the root of it, back to growing up, is the food you ate or the conditioning that, you got to finish everything on your plate, no matter what it is. Right.
Yes.
And living in big families, you have to eat like mass produced, spaghetti and meatballs. Like, I guess I'm speaking for myself, all the time because you're feeding 5 kids. So I think it's unearthing the individuality of each patient to find out, and it takes time to get to the root cause of what's happening.
Absolutely. And that's kind of part of it's kind of why I broke away. I'm not, I have no contracts with insurance companies, and the system, the healthcare system, the medical system is built, how can I really get to know anyone in 15 or 20 minutes? I mean, come on, I've been talking now for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, we are so complex. There are so many, there's so much about each and every individual. And so, when you need to see 15 people a day, you can't help it. You can only give it so much time. And, in medicine, in school, we learn how to be efficient. We're taught how to be efficient. We're taught how to just ask the right question. And if I see that you're kind of drifting away, I'm going to bring it kind of back to not so much maybe where you were going to go to it with, but what I need to know in this time frame so that I can get the diagnosis and accordingly I can treat you properly. And so this new model that I use, direct primary care, or even the practice that I have now is, so there's no insurances. It's about becoming a member. And I actually don't have a brick and mortar, and it's intentional as well. So I know where all my patients live. I mean, I sometimes know where they sleep. I know what their kitchen looks like. I know what their house looks like. I know the neighborhood they live in. And I was never able to know anything, about an individual just by them coming to my office space, seeing me in my white coat, and them kind of rehearsing what questions are, okay, I know I only have 15, 20 minutes. Granted, even in my previous practice, all the clocks in my rooms never worked. And I did that intentionally. So I never was kind of had to rush so that I never could look at the clock. And I can't tell you how many magical moments I've had where, oh my God, I've been here for 40 minutes already. I'm running behind, because I can see there's someone. And then once I come out, the person never showed up. So everything would always kind of work out in the scheme of things. And honestly, I love those moments. Those were great moments when that happens, And now, it's a membership. People pay a monthly fee, but I go to people's homes, and sometimes I'll be there for an hour, for 2 hours. And the intention is to get to really know people and take the time, figure things out with them together, never feel rushed. If you ask patients what the thing that bothers them the most when they go to see their doctor, on the top there, it's going to be, well, I don't feel like I have enough time, or maybe I feel rushed. And I mean, health is so sacred. I mean, a doctor's office is, people tell me things about themselves they may not even tell their loved ones or their husbands or their wives, and so to feel rushed, and that is not right. This is something that needs to be kind of honored. So that's kind of how I do it. And I also walk with my patients every Tuesday mornings. Whoever wants to join, we do monthly events, which is a plant-based potluck. And then I have some educational discussion. I have a lady who's coming this Thursday who was faced with infertility and tried everything. And finally in her journey, she fell on whole food plant-based nutrition, and she got pregnant within 2 months, and she went ahead and wrote a book about it. And so she's in my area, and she's coming to give a talk. So I do grocery store tours, and again, the idea is how to inspire, how to kind of keep people proactive, because the one thing that separates those who stay on board with whatever their health goals are is simply support and having community. When you're kind of told, go do this, eat more of this, exercise that, but you have to do it on your own, or maybe it's challenging. It's so, how can I make healthcare more human, kind of hands-on, practical, real, so people really feel ultimately cared for, and I find that can make a difference. So
yeah, it's because it's healthcare, so you would think that allowing the patients to feel cared for is a number one priority. And how cool is it that you, like, if the foundation is lifestyle and you're seeing it, you're seeing their kitchen, you're seeing their home, you're seeing their environment, which is so strong. Environment is so strong. And maybe there's some pieces of that environment that can shift and change that would help to support their health, right? Like I've never even thought about it that way. Like going to your office, with your nice white coat, that you don't know what my lifestyle's like. Like you don't know if I have, a trash can filled with fast food, because I'm not going to tell you. I only have 15 minutes.
And think about the energy. Like, I'm going to go see my doctor. Like, I got to rush there. I got to get the parking spot. I got to go up. I got to wait. I'm going to pay for something. Weird. And then I leave. And then it's kind of like ticking the box. Like, as long as I see you for the 15 minutes, then I can take off and just go back to what I'm doing, versus in those experiences, you have one-on-one with them in a conversation. Maybe they begin to trust and open up and peel back maybe a layer or two that says, this is what's really happening. And they can release a little bit more information to you so that you can truly help them.
Yeah. And ultimately it's not about me. And, it's about, I always tell my patients, I'm not the captain of the ship here. You're the captain of the ship. And this is all about honesty and transparency. Whatever we're doing here is for you. And, that's, I think I once heard the statistic is 50% of those who, 50% of people who are prescribed medication only take them. There is some kind of ridiculous kind of fact. And we're always taught not to believe people when they tell you how many glasses of or drinks of alcohol they take. So I kind of think that on the same kind of line, people get a little bit embarrassed and they don't want to really, everybody apparently is eating healthy. I don't remember, it's very few of the patients who say, I know I don't eat well, but I eat healthy, I eat good. To me, that's kind of, I don't really know what that means, what you mean by eating healthy, for example, right? But again, when you kind of, today, the person that I went to his house, at one point we were reading labels together. So at first they brought they took out the gluten-free bread that they just bought that they really like. And eventually they took out those Ritz crackers and say, things are starting to kind of come out, and that's okay. The idea is here that people shouldn't feel judged. We're all human, right? I grew up on, I kind of joke around that I grew up in the Holy Land, and then I moved to the land of hamburgers and steaks, and, but the point is, some things are out of our control, and it's okay the way we are. And creating that environment of unconditional love, allows people to kind of feel safe enough to be honest. And it's not so they're only honest with me, but ultimately so they're honest with themselves. And that allows themselves to hopefully to heal, or to open themselves up in whatever shape or form or idea, whatever they need for themselves. So that's kind of the ultimate goal, if you will. So.
Yeah. I mean, we have the fear of being judged is massive. And I think in a relationship where you feel like you're safe, we start to open. And as we start to open and when we share things, and as coaches, I really could resonate when you said, like, people tell you things that they don't tell their spouse, or have never told anyone before. And whoa, like what an honorable space that we get to hold in that respect. But I think that when we begin to speak more truth, it's like we realize that the things that we've been holding on to because of this, whatever conscious or subconscious fear of being judged, they're not that big of a deal. So what if you ate a sleeve of Ritz crackers? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, you're still loved because you exist, And it's amazing. I think that in and of itself is massive healing. This idea of truth, it's so interesting. The timing is so beautiful. We just launched a podcast yesterday. BJ and I do a podcast every month, and we were talking about truth. We were talking about fear, and we were saying in the face of fear, right, which is always about what's going to happen next. It's like, what is true right now? What is true? What is true right now? What is true? Okay, you had the Ritz. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And ultimately, I mean, we live in such a world that's so full of temptation, and that temptation will never, ever, ever go away. Ooh, I don't care what grocery store you go to, what town you live in, and you're going to see that restaurant or whatever it may be. And it's kind of learning to live and love and understand the temptation or whatever it may be. And you know what? If you need a little bit of it in your life, to me, I think that's okay. I don't think we need to be A+ students in every area of our lives, even in our own health lives, to produce significant benefits, to feel and to be healthier. So I always tell my patients, if you're a B-, you're going to do great. But if you're an F, if you're 50% every week of the year, I don't know, things are going to start accumulating. So, it's not you can do whatever you want, but it's kind of, even a little bit will go a long way, and more will even take you further. You don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. And ultimately, when we kind of start making healthier choices, I mean, we know our taste buds get better. Our body kind of responds to all that temptation in such a way that, you know what, it's kind of not that exciting anymore. It just kind of becomes not that exciting, and there's other ways to create healthy, yummy, delicious meals that are tasty and all that kind of good stuff, that eventually that can become your second nature, and not whatever the other habits you used to do. Or once you get on a kick of exercise, those endorphins, they can become, addicting, and can you learn to enjoy these things, and that's part of the process and the journey. And so, you mentioned truth, and on my website, I kind of mentioned, ask me how I found truth. So I actually found truth, and I actually found it in New Mexico. So when I left Israel when I was 18, my goal was to seek truth, and that was my focus. And fast forward 2 years, I am in New Mexico. I landed in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the time. I was kind of traveling. I didn't know what I was exactly doing. I was living in the present moment. I was just being the alchemist, whoever I was, just being me. And there was this point of, well, am I going to stay now in Santa Fe, New Mexico, or should I go to Taos, New Mexico? I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And I was really confused. And so I decided to go to Taos, and I decided to hitchhike. And I kind of started hitchhiking, and one guy got me onto their car and picked me up. And I was so confused at the time and indecisive about my decision to make. And I said, stop the car. I need to get off. And I did. And then I was like, come on, Alon, we're going to Taos. I was like, okay. So I hitchhike again, and I get on a car, and again, I was so frozen by indecisiveness that I get off the car again. And for the third time, I hitchhike again, and I get on a car, and again, I was confused, and I tell the driver stop, and he looks at me and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't think I said anything. And he said, do you mind if I pray for you? And I was like, okay. So he prays, and I get off the car, and by that time, I was just so confused. I took out my diary, and I kind of sit on the side of the road, and I kind of start writing. And at one point, I kind of picked up my head, and I kind of looked across, and I saw it was this van, and this lady standing outside the van with this big sign saying, I have 3 children, I will work for food. I thought, oh, okay. And I keep writing, and one thing led to another, and I decided to walk towards her. And so I walk over, and we start chatting, and one thing leads to another, and she says, yeah, I'm actually on my way to Taos, New Mexico right now. And I said, okay, so I'm going to get on that van. And she was a Mormon, and she was traveling all the way from Florida. And I get on the car. She has 3 kids in the back of the car. And I hadn't been with a female influence or a motherly influence at the time for quite a while, because I was on my own. And I just started talking and talking. And this is the drive from Santa Fe to Taos is just like gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. And I'm talking, and she had 3 kids in the back of the car, and she had a younger daughter, which I can't remember her name, and then she had 2 sons, and one son, his name was Life, and then the oldest son, his name was Truth. And at that moment, I turned around and I looked at him straight into the eye, and I said, I finally found you. And that is how I found truth. Whether it's just a mind game or a symbol, but in my mind, did I really find the truth? No, you never stop finding the truth, right? I think it was kind of an ideological idea that I had in my mind back then, but.
Well, you kept pursuing. So the truth was all those moments. I love this, because all the moments you got out of the car and back into the car, out of the car, back into the car, like that is how you get to where you want to go. It's not the pretty picture of like, okay, here's the map. All I need to do is follow this road. I'm going to get there by 10 o'clock, and there it goes. Like that rarely ever happens. It's the on, off, but continuing to move forward. And the truth in that is that your desire to believe that there's something ahead for you trumped any of the lingering resistance that was trying to pull you back to where you have been. Yeah. And you kept pursuing that. And I think that takes connection to something higher, whatever that is, source, energy, light, whatever you want to call it. And it's just a magnificent example that those that are listening to this right now, there are going to be moments you get off and moments you're back on, and moments you're off, you're back on. But until you know for certain you need to go back, you keep going forward.
Amen.
Must.
Absolutely. Yes. After once we got to Taos, I got off the van, and then there was this other group of kids in their 20s who were, playing with a hacky sack, and, I kind of chatted with them for a little bit, and I guess they were all into aliens and to the Palladians, and so the journey kind of, moved forward into other realms, but I think those were the times, kind of new age bookstores, and but the journey continued, and life. This is life. Each to their own. Yeah.
I think a lot of people can resonate with just the indecisiveness or decision fatigue, or should I have done this? And should I do this? Should I not have done this? And what I've discovered in the face of like choices, right? We can give them a lot of meaning. We can say they're big choices. Where should I live? We can give them little meaning, like, oh, should I go this way to the store? Should I go this way to the store? But what I found for truth, as far as all that is concerned, is that it doesn't really matter what choice you make, because the truth is that whatever way you decide to go, it's going to teach you it's going to teach you its inherent wisdom, right? Like its inherent teaching is going to be there for you. But I think like indecisiveness, like kind of that fear of the unknown, the search for certainty. I don't know if you see that within patients, or how and how do you support them in that? Because we have a lot of identity around, who we've grown to be, and even the foods that we eat. And I call myself a this or a that. I'm a meat eater, I'm a vegan, whatever it may be. And so we step out of that, then who are we? And so that can be really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it took me a while to come to terms with being indecisive back then, where it's okay to not know, because indecisiveness is basically not knowing. I just don't know what to do right now. And that's okay. So, and I think so much, even thinking for me, so much of the indecisiveness that in the past that I had, or sometimes may have, it comes from trying to decide something that maybe it's not time to make a decision about right now in this moment, but I'm kind of trying to prepare myself for the future. And, I'm trying to try to figure out what leg is going to cross, with what leg am I going to, get to the other side with? Is it going to be my left or my right? I mean, I don't need to know that. And so it's okay to not know. And actually, in medicine, when I was in medical school, one of the professors in one of my classes, out of the whole class, in the middle of, out of nowhere, points his finger at me. And there's 100 people in this class. And he asks me this question. And I kind of was like, oh my God, I said, I don't know. And he looked at me and he said, you know what? One day you're going to be a great doctor, because you can simply admit that you just don't know. And at the time I was like, thank the Lord, I got out of this one, but in all seriousness, it really is okay to not know something. And like you said, coming back to the present moment, being here, being now, and perhaps it's collecting the facts, what you know, what you have, and slowly, whether it's baby steps or big strides, kind of, going to where you want to go. So for me, I've coined the term the baby step method, which I'm sure I'm not the first to say that, but when patients come to me, and whatever the change may be for themselves or things they're struggling with, it's kind of, we don't have to figure it all out. We don't have to create 100% change right now. We can take it in baby steps. And I actually encourage my patients, my members, to, what are you ready for? What do you feel you are able to do right now, within everything that's going on in your life, rather than me telling you what you should be doing, right? It kind of, the patient is the captain of the ship, and I'm sitting in the next to the driver's seat, and kind of trying to help. But ultimately, you're the driver, and it's part of the journey. So for me, a lot is kind of, and this is, I think, where spiritual medicine comes in, which is a term I haven't really heard that term before, but to me, it made sense. And it's not that I do, I'm sending, it's not that kind of metaphysical type necessarily, but it's actually introducing these ideas or these values or these virtues of trust, of surrender, of have patience and love, and integrating them, into healthcare, and using these words, because I never heard the word love or unconditional love throughout medical school or residency. It's not common unless you're maybe a psychiatrist, and psychiatry, I think, is the only place where I'd heard, I would hear the word compassion or, forgiveness, but it's not common in kind of day-to-day kind of, hospital kind of pharmaceutical kind of proper medicine. And oh man, that is, to me, so important. And over the years in my journey, I've kind of learned to value that I bring it in. Now, some people don't need to hear this. And, it's not to say that this needs to fit everybody, because it doesn't. And again, it's the patient that kind of guides the interaction. And I'm kind of here to adjust myself to what I feel or sense, is kind of appropriate. That said, spiritual medicine, that's kind of, to me, it's important. And it's important to love ourselves, and to acknowledge not knowing, and to forgive, or to whatever it may be out there. It's part of the journey, for sure, especially when it comes to health and healing. And that in and of itself is a whole journey, especially when you're coming from a disease-based environment, or a psychological, or some depression, or whatever it may be. We need a supportive and nurturing kind of environment. And I encourage people to be that for themselves as well. You need to nurture yourself. Go home today and look yourself straight in the eye. And I'm going to write this prescription. I want you TID, which means 3 times a day. And, in medical terms, to kind of look yourself straight in the eye and say, I love you and I think you're awesome. It can be as simple as something like that, to just acknowledge the journey you're on and who you are, etc. So,
wow, yeah, we wanted to hear about spiritual energy, and that certainly that's captivates everything that we thought it would be. But I there's such a place for that. There's such an opportunity to feel more and not be so robotic about things, and so, habitual about things, and maybe interrupt the process in our lives a little bit, so we can explore what it's like to actually feel compassion, feel love, feel these things, and that we don't need to have all the answers. I think you probably experience this too. People will say, I'll start doing that once I know why, or once I get this figured out, then I'll be able to move forward. And some of that stuff about figuring out is none of our business. Like it's at a higher level where we may just never know. Mm-hmm. But let's just keep taking steps that feel good to move us forward. Mm-hmm. And I think the spiritual medicine is that. It is that. It's that all-encompassing, let's just go on this journey together and figure out, let's be honest, who you are and who you want to be. And along that way, let's bring some health into this equation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think health is inevitable if we're leaning into trust, we're leaning into love, we're leaning into kindness. I think an elevation of health is the byproduct of that type of mindset, right? Like fear, indecision, fear of judgment, or judging, comparison, energy, all of that creates a lot of stress in our lives. I think what you're doing is beautiful. You've just expressed the most beautiful words I've ever heard a physician speak. And we've interviewed a lot of physicians on this podcast, and I wish we only release the audio, but if people could see, like, you've got like fists in the air, like you're so passionate. It's absolutely beautiful what you're doing. And I believe that you're doing, do you feel, I believe, but do you feel like you're doing, like you're on purpose with, your personal legend to bring it all back to The Alchemist, like your purpose or your dharma in this world?
I'm a human being like everybody. I have my moments, doubt creeps in. I try to stay grounded, and a lot of what I preach, I kind of, I have to support and nurture myself still. So, I do wish my parents allowed me to play soccer when I was that teenager, that maybe I would have become a soccer player, but, I can't change that anymore. Well, this is where life led me. So this is where I'm at. This is where I led myself as well. So, I do reflect a lot. I think reflection is important. I reflect about, I think about life. I think about existence. I think about these things maybe too often, but it's kind of what keeps me sober. It's what keeps me sane, especially in kind of the last 2 years. These were tough times, to say the least. And, it's so, I'm a human being, I'm a human being.
You're very humble.
I
very humble.
I keep it humble because, you never know when it's going to come and kind of bite you in the behind. Unprepared. So I kind of choose to I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong. I have my moments in the car where I'm listening to the Greatest Showman soundtrack, and and I have those moments with myself, where I'm grateful, and I'm yeah.
That's beautiful. I'm so grateful for your time today. And obviously, people in your area can connect with you through the Empowerment website, and we'll put a link to that in our show notes. But also, people can connect with you with plant-based telehealth. And there'll be a list there of all the states that you are licensed.
New Hampshire and Massachusetts.
New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Okay.
And plant-based telehealth, they have, I think, we have physicians who are licensed in, I think, in almost all of the states. Mm-hmm. And so a shout out to plant-based telehealth. Just a wonderful group of physicians. We're all very much kind of like-minded. I think all of us, all the physicians in that group, are so grateful to be part of plant-based telehealth, because we have now a lot of colleagues and a camaraderie that we're all we don't have to explain. And we're all kind of thinking on the same wavelength. And they're all wonderful. They're just all wonderful. So.
Yeah, it's an amazing group. We've been so blessed to interview pretty much every single one of them. And I go and I check meet the doctors, and I'm like, oh, there's more. Dr. Sitzer, let's get him on. So thank you again for being here. So grateful for your time today. And we'll put all links for people to connect with you if they want more of you. And anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we sign off?
I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for this conversation. It was fun. It's nice. I mean, I've had my share of goosebumps on and off throughout the last hour. So when that happens, it's always it's a great feeling. So I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys for bringing this consciousness, bringing and putting it out there, and kind of and making it real for others as well. So. We all need that. We all need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.